let me sleep in the basement while her parents took my room. I waited until Christmas morning, then took the $22.00 estate off their hands. I don't want my guests to see you. You look like some old piece of junk that belongs forgotten in the attic. Go sleep in the basement, Mother. I've cleared it out for you. Her voice echoed in the hallway, as hollow as a falling gavel. I stood there with the cloth halfway through scrubbing the kitchen table. The soft overhead light caught every crease on my face, every hollow beneath my eyes. Memories of 90 students and 30 years of lectures flowing through them. But today there were no lectures, no students, only that cold, slicing sentence. I nodded once, "Huh? Huh?" and only a single tremor of acknowledgement. I had learned long ago not to argue, not to make a scene. I watched her walk away in her stilettos, echoes of her steps growing sharper, louder, until the door upstairs slammed shut like a tomb, sealing me in. They think I'm nothing more than a breath hanging in the corners of this place, a faint, useless ghost. They forget such a breath can ignite a wildfire, consuming everything they hold dear. I took my key and slowly descended the stairs. Each step was a negotiation between gravity and memory. When I reached the bottom, a flickering bulb bathed the basement in pale yellow. There was no warmth here, no light, just the aching, stale smell of disuse. On the small table waiting for me was a flimsy plastic tray, crumb-ridden, with a bowl of mush-brown things floating in grayish gravy. A dog food bowl, labeled by Erica's thoughtless voice. I must have accidentally made too much for Duke that night. "Maybe you'll like it if you're hungry, Mother." She laughed, turning away as though she'd shared some private, triumphant joke. I stared at it, a twisted parody of what used to be meals, lovingly cooked for my only son, day after night after dawn. I remember teaching a class about the dignity of nourishment, how food is memory, comfort, and connection. And now I hold in my worn hands the kind of sustenance one gives to mongrels. My hands went to my apron, a faded floral smock I wore while cleaning the house I once built with my words, lectures, patience, and love. I gripped it tight so the tears wouldn't fall. Once, on a gray autumn afternoon, Lucas came running into my classroom, handing me that lopsided drawing of me in a red cape. "You're a superhero, Mom," he said, his eyes wide with pride. Now the same boy above turns away, silent riot in his heart, while the woman he married wields cruelty as if it's a certificate of advancement. I refused to let myself cry. There was nothing left for tears down here, only quiet determination. Above me, I heard voices. Erica's mother, cool voice dripping like melted ice. "She's filthy. Couldn't we just stack her up with some junk in the attic and pretend we did something nice?" A hollow laugh from Erica's own mother-in-law. "If she drops dead quietly, better for the ambience." The door upstairs shut. Another hammer blow to what little grip on dignity I had. I dropped to my knees and pressed both palms to the ground, feeling the chill of the cement floor seep into my bones. I placed my forehead against it, breathing in the smell of dust and regret. The mantel clock upstairs ticked, a small whisper of time passing, proof that they forgot how much time once had passage significance for me. Because I remember how Lucas would sneak me the first spoonfuls of his lunch when he was just a boy, saying, "Mum, taste this. It's for you, we're in this together." Now he shares only looks. Hollow, polite, uneasy. Before I turned away, I caught the edge of a photograph leaning against the wall, buried under a rolled-up poster of minimalist furniture. I pulled it out. It was my graduation photo from the university where I taught. I'm smiling, holding a framed degree, wearing a cap and gown. Young, full of purpose, hope. Erica never asked about it, never valued it, but that same achievement now has the power to burn her world down. Holding the photo to my chest, I felt its weight, my soul condensed in a single frame, waiting for its moment. I stood. Yes, they see me as a breath clinging to the dark corners, but they forget some small spark can set the entire forest ablaze. I tucked that photo into my apron's pocket and turned toward the stairs. Tonight, I will sleep in the shadows, but tomorrow the fire begins. My name is Lois Harrington. I'm 74 years old, and once, not too long ago, I was someone people stood up to greet when I walked into a room. I was a professor of sociology at a university in Washington, 3 master's degrees: education, public policy, and philosophy. I spent over 3 decades lecturing on systems, history, the invisible backbone of society. I taught students how to recognize abuse disguised as order, how to see love even when it comes dressed in silence. But in the end, none of my credentials saved me from becoming invisible in my own home. You see, I wasn't always quiet. Life silenced me. I was married once, to a man who loved the idea of me more than the weight I carried. He was charismatic, well-dressed, quick to charm, quicker to leave. When Lucas was 8, his father packed a suitcase and walked out the door, after a disagreement over something as mundane as the mortgage. He never looked back. I raised Lucas alone. No child support, no apology letters, just me and him, sharing 1 pot of soup and 2 bowls between lectures and tutoring gigs. At night, I'd grade papers while mopping the lecture hall floors just to make ends meet. By day, I'd put on pearls and step onto a podium, speaking with a voice strong enough to command attention. No one ever saw me mop, a secret I folded into my silence. Like every woman who survives by vanishing parts of herself others find inconvenient, Lucas grew up in that life of careful dignity. He was quiet, artistic, gentle. I encouraged him to draw, to explore, but when he graduated, I nudged him towards something stable. He wanted to be an artist. I insisted he study architecture. Maybe that was the first crack in our closeness, but I was afraid he'd inherit the same instability his father left behind. I wanted security for him, something solid. I thought I was protecting him. Lucas got his degree and eventually opened his own furniture company, a sleek little startup that took off quickly thanks to one thing: me. When I retired, I sold my house, emptied my retirement account, and gave everything I had to help Lucas launch his dream. I didn't hesitate or ask for terms. I just said, "This is yours now. I believe in you." He cried that night. He hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. And he said one sentence I still remember: "You'll never have to worry again, Mom. This house is your home for life." It wasn't just a house. It was a beautiful 2-story home with white pillars and deep cedar accents, overlooking the quiet treetops of North Capitol Hill. Lucas built it from the ground up with his own designs. And I was proud. So proud. When Erica came into the picture, I welcomed her with open arms. She was stunning, sharp-witted, and moved through life like she'd already won. But even on the first dinner, I saw the way she looked at me. Not with cruelty, no, worse. Pity. She asked me what I did for a living, and when I told her, she smiled and said, "Oh, that's nice. Lucas always says you were very academic." I brushed it off at the time, but that word, academic, when said like that, it's a soft insult, a way of saying useless now. After they married, things changed slowly, almost gracefully, like watching ice spread over a pond until it cracked. Erica started by suggesting I streamline my space. She wanted to open up the house. Next came the repainted walls, soft grays and creams, her design taste replacing mine. My bookshelf vanished one weekend while I was away visiting a friend. So did my rocking chair. So did the grandfather clock my students gave me when I retired. But I told myself, they're just building a life. You're lucky to be here. Keep quiet. Be grateful. I cooked for them, cleaned their rooms, washed their babies' clothes. I never asked for rent. I never asked for help. I never once reminded Lucas that none of this, not the company, not the house, not the life, would exist without what I gave up. Why would I? He was my son. He had grown from a boy who cried when he lost a tooth into a man who rarely made eye contact at breakfast. I still remember his laugh when he was 5. I remember how he used to crawl into my lap, even when his legs were too long. And now, at 74, I had become a whisper in the corner of a home I funded. I had become the polite inconvenience, the antique no one dares to throw away, but no one dares to polish either. It was Erica who said it first, over wine one evening to her friends in the kitchen, thinking I couldn't hear. "She's fine, just very outdated. You know the type. Thinks reading books makes her superior." I mean, I let her stay because it was important to Lucas, but honestly, she's kind of in the way now. Her words sliced sharper than any knife in my kitchen drawer, but I stayed silent. I stayed silent when they replaced my quilt with a mass-manufactured duvet. I stayed silent when Lucas forgot my birthday not once, but twice. I stayed silent when Erica told the housekeeper to knock before entering my room, as if it no longer belonged to me, because I believed that love, real love, meant endurance, that if I gave enough, stayed long enough, forgave quietly enough, I would always belong. But I was wrong. What they wanted wasn't a mother, they wanted a monument. Something silent, something still, something they could bury in the basement and forget. They say resentment is just love that's been left too long in the sun, shriveled, bitter, and hard to swallow. I didn't see it at first. I mistook the tension for personality differences, for growing pains between generations. But now, looking back, the signs were clear. Let me tell you about Erica. Erica is sharp, razor sharp, the kind of woman who negotiates without blinking, thrives on risk, and calculates people the way most folks calculate interest rates. She came from Boston, from a family that wore power like perfume. Her father is a retired surgeon. Her mother runs charity galas for faces she can't remember the names of. When Erica met Lucas, she saw potential, not in his artistry, he barely painted anymore, but in his ability to build, manage, and impress. She liked his vision for the furniture company, liked that it came with an investor, me, liked that the house was already half paid off. In the beginning, we got along fine. I even encouraged her when she started dabbling in personal finance and digital portfolios. She asked me once, over tea, if she should invest in a state-run education fund that was expanding across counties. I looked over the numbers. Slow returns, yes, but stable, ethical, long-term. I told her, invest in things that feed children or minds. Those never crash. She listened. Made her first real return, over $200,000, 0 cents, I heard later. She thanked me once, a quick, tight smile. But as she climbed the ladder, something shifted. She got a taste for faster deals, crypto, tech flips, private coin offerings. And then one day, she came into the kitchen with an idea, said I should sell my old rental property and funnel the money into a coin startup she was backing. We'd triple it in 6 months. It's the future, Lois. Why cling to dusty assets? I said no, calmly, without judgment. Real wealth isn't numbers on a screen, I told her. It's peace. It's people who'll visit you in the hospital when those numbers vanish. Her eyes narrowed like I'd insulted her directly. And then, her deal crashed. Big. She lost hundreds of thousands, mostly borrowed capital. And from that day forward, I wasn't just her mother-in-law, I was her scapegoat. You don't understand modern money. You sabotage my timing. If you weren't so stubborn, I'd be in a very different position right now. Suddenly, I was the reason her career wasn't skyrocketing. Not the market, not the risk, not the timing. Me, the outdated moral anchor in her high-speed yacht. She started freezing me out with style, no open fights, just glances, redecorating without telling me, moving my books into boxes, introducing me at parties as Lucas's mother, no name, no title, like I was a placeholder in his biography. Then there's Lucas. God, I love that boy. I loved him so hard it bruised me. But love doesn't mean blindness. Lucas has always had a quiet grudge, not a loud one, the kind that simmers. He wanted to be a painter, not an architect, not a businessman, a painter. But I was a woman raising a son alone, with nothing but a chalkboard and a broken-down car. I saw dreams get eaten alive by bills and eviction notices. So I told him, gently but firmly, you can paint on Sundays, baby, but Monday through Friday we build something solid. He obeyed, without protest, without joy. But the more his company succeeded, the more I saw in his eyes that silent echo. This wasn't my dream. I could feel it in how he hesitated before showing me his work, in how he dismissed compliments as, "You always say that, Mom." Then, years later, after Erica entered the picture, he said it directly, in a single sentence that cracked me open. "You never forgave Dad. That's why he died alone." I had been sitting by the window, folding linens. My hands froze mid-crease. He didn't look up when he said it, just kept scrolling on his phone. "You never forgave him," he repeated, "and that coldness, it's what I grew up with. Even when you were good, you weren't warm." I wanted to scream, to grab his shoulders and tell him the truth, that I forgave his father 1,000 times before I asked him to leave, that I wiped lipstick off his collars while telling myself it was my fault, that I held Lucas at night while wondering why love made me feel like an intruder in my own marriage. But I didn't scream. I stayed silent, because he wouldn't hear me. That was the day I realized Lucas no longer saw me as his foundation, he saw me as his cage. He admired Erica, her boldness, her edge, her ability to speak her mind. I, who once filled auditoriums, was now the background noise of old ideas. So the perfect storm brewed. To Erica, I was the obstacle to her full control. To Lucas, I was the ghost of his compromise. They both resented me for who I used to be, even though who I was made everything they had possible. Their logic didn't matter. Resentment doesn't need to be logical. It just needs a target. And I, silent and unassuming, was easy. So they chipped away at me, slowly. No one big blow. Just 1,000 little erasures. Let's put that award plaque in storage. It's dated. Do you mind not talking politics at dinner? It makes Erica uncomfortable. Could you not wear those old scarves when guests are over? We're filming today. Every request delivered with a smile. Every smile loaded with implication. You're out of place. You're in the way. You are a relic. And relics don't get rooms upstairs. When Erica's parents moved in, it wasn't with suitcases, it was with sweets. They arrived from Boston with rolling trunks, framed art, and a tone of entitlement that made it clear they weren't guests. They were fixtures. Erica claimed it was temporary, just a month or two until we renovate their place. But the renovations never came. Just excuses and more imported teas stocked in the pantry where my Earl Grey used to be. One morning, without warning, I returned from a walk to find my bedroom door open, my things boxed, and a cleaning crew inside. Erica greeted me like she was announcing a weather update. My parents will be using your room, Mother. They're not comfortable in guest quarters. I've made arrangements for you downstairs. Downstairs, not the lower suite, not the garden level, just down. The basement hadn't been used in years. It was musty, dim, and held the kind of chill that settled deep in the knees. I opened the door and was greeted not by welcome, but by the concrete smell of being discarded. No heating, no window, no rug. Just a twin mattress on a creaky frame, a metal shelf with my boxed books, and one dim lamp that flickered when I exhaled too hard. I didn't argue. What was there to say? I carried my own boxes down. 6 trips. No one offered to help. The next morning, I went upstairs to make toast. Erica was in the kitchen, smiling without teeth. I'd prefer if you didn't cook when no one's home. Insurance won't cover fire damage from, you know. I blinked. From who? You're elderly, Lois. No offense, but reflexes slow down. You don't want to be that headline, do you? She installed a camera in the kitchen that afternoon. A tiny black eye in the corner, blinking red every time I stepped into view. At first, I thought it was just for security. Then I noticed one day, when I opened the fridge to make a sandwich, Erica's voice came through the intercom in the hallway. We have lunch plans, Lois. Please don't touch the goat cheese. It's for guests. I wasn't allowed to use the stove. Was told not to eat the good fruit. Everything I touched got labeled, and everything I used was monitored for safety. There was no Wi-Fi in the basement. One night, after 2 weeks of dead air and loneliness, I asked Erica for the password. Her response, elderly people don't need the internet. You should learn to slow down, embrace quiet. It's good for aging brains, she said it with a smile so wide it scraped my memory, because when Lucas was 7 and we couldn't afford cable, I used to read him encyclopedia entries from a secondhand set someone donated to the school. He asked once, Mom, how do people know so many things? I answered, because someone always leaves the door open for them to learn. Now, that same door had been slammed shut and locked by the very woman I once helped climb through it. They gave the dog more access than me. Duke, their golden retriever, had a better bed, better snacks, his own room. Erica once said to a neighbor, laughing, Lois has always been more of a cat person, quiet, independent, needs no interaction, perfect basement dweller, really. I became a silent servant, allowed upstairs only during cleaning days, laundry hours, or when there were no guests. When guests came, and there were many, I was told to give them space, stay out of the way, and respect their energy. It was ironic. I had once taught an entire course on psychological microaggressions and institutional ageism. Now I was living the footnotes of my own lectures. Lucas didn't intervene. Once I asked him, gently, privately, if he thought it was fair. He hesitated, looked away. Erica's under a lot of pressure. Her parents aren't used to tight spaces. I wasn't a space. I was a mother. A woman who once saved every paycheck to buy him sketch pads. A woman who used to tape up holes in her boots so he could attend summer art camps. A woman who fought his father in court for custody and won, with nothing but grit and legal dictionaries borrowed from a public library. And now I was an afterthought, standing in the hallway with my dignity folded tighter than the linen napkins I ironed for their wine tastings. The worst day? It was raining. The basement flooded slightly, nothing dangerous, but enough to soak the rug under my bed. When I told Erica, her reply came crisp. Well, maybe it's time you moved into a senior community. They have better drainage and people your age. You'd like it. Like I was a bottle of milk past expiration. She wasn't asking, she was testing me, seeing if I would leave, make it easier. I didn't leave, because while they stripped me of space, silence, and comfort, they forgot I built this home. I paid for the foundation. I funded the business. I signed the original deed, and I had kept every receipt. When Erica's parents moved in, it wasn't with suitcases, it was with suites. They arrived from Boston with rolling trunks, framed art, and a tone of entitlement that made it clear they weren't guests, they were fixtures. Erica claimed it was temporary, just a month or two until we renovate their place. But the renovations never came. Just excuses and more imported teas stocked in the pantry where my Earl Grey used to be. One morning, without warning, I returned from a walk to find my bedroom door open, my things boxed, and a cleaning crew inside. Erica greeted me like she was announcing a weather update. My parents will be using your room, Mother. They're not comfortable in guest quarters. I've made arrangements for you downstairs. Downstairs. Not the lower suite. Not the garden level, just down. The basement hadn't been used in years. It was musty, dim, and held the kind of chill that settled deep in the knees. I opened the door and was greeted not by welcome, but by the concrete smell of being discarded. No heating, no window, no rug. Just a twin mattress on a creaky frame, a metal shelf with my boxed books, and one dim lamp that flickered when I exhaled too hard. I didn't argue. What was there to say? I carried my own boxes down, 6 trips. No one offered to help. The next morning, I went upstairs to make toast. Erica was in the kitchen, smiling without teeth. I'd prefer if you didn't cook when no one's home. Insurance won't cover fire damage from, you know. I blinked. From who? You're elderly, Lois. No offense, but reflexes slow down. You don't want to be that headline, do you? She installed a camera in the kitchen that afternoon. A tiny black eye in the corner, blinking red every time I stepped into view. At first, I thought it was just for security. Then, I noticed one day, when I opened the fridge to make a sandwich, Erica's voice came through the intercom in the hallway. We have lunch plans, Lois. Please don't touch the goat cheese, it's for guests. I wasn't allowed to use the stove. Was told not to eat the good fruit. Everything I touched got labeled, and everything I used was monitored for safety. There was no Wi-Fi in the basement. One night, after 2 weeks of dead air and loneliness, I asked Erica for the password. Her response? Elderly people don't need the internet. You should learn to slow down, embrace quiet. It's good for aging brains. She said it with a smile so wide it scraped my memory. Because when Lucas was 7 and we couldn't afford cable, I used to read him encyclopedia entries from a second-hand set someone donated to the school. He asked once, Mom, how do people know so many things? I answered, because someone always leaves the door open for them to learn. Now, that same door had been slammed shut and locked by the very woman I once helped climb through it. They gave the dog more access than me. Duke, their golden retriever, had a better bed, better snacks, his own room. Erica once said to a neighbor, laughing, Lois has always been more of a cat person, quiet, independent, needs no interaction, perfect basement dweller, really. I became a silent servant, allowed upstairs only during cleaning days, laundry hours, or when there were no guests. When guests came, and there were many, I was told to give them space, stay out of the way, and respect their energy. It was ironic. I had once taught an entire course on psychological microaggressions and institutional ageism. Now I was living the footnotes of my own lectures. Lucas didn't intervene. Once I asked him, gently, privately, if he thought it was fair. He hesitated, looked away. Erica's under a lot of pressure. Her parents aren't used to tight spaces. I wasn't a space. I was a mother, a woman who once saved every paycheck to buy him sketch pads. A woman who used to tape up holes in her boots so he could attend summer art camps. A woman who fought his father in court for custody and won, with nothing but grit and legal dictionaries borrowed from a public library. And now, I was an afterthought, standing in the hallway with my dignity folded tighter than the linen napkins I ironed for their wine tastings. The worst day? It was raining. The basement flooded slightly, nothing dangerous, but enough to soak the rug under my bed. When I told Erica, her reply came crisp. Well, maybe it's time you moved into a senior community. They have better drainage and people your age. You'd like it. Like I was a bottle of milk past expiration. She wasn't asking. She was testing me. Seeing if I would leave, make it easier. I didn't leave. Because while they stripped me of space, silence, and comfort, they forgot. I built this home. I paid for the foundation. I funded the business. I signed the original deed. And I had kept every receipt. 6 months before that Christmas dinner, before the glass, the laughter, and the final insult, I started to forget things. At least, that's what they believed. I misplaced salt in the sugar jar. I asked where the light switch was in the hallway I helped design. I told Erica the same story about my first class at university, twice, 3 days apart. She noticed, of course. She always noticed. Not with concern, but with opportunity. One afternoon, I stood in the living room holding a remote, pretending not to know how to turn on the TV. Erica walked in, paused, tilted her head like someone inspecting a crack in a vase. "You okay, Lois? You been off lately?" I looked at her, glassy-eyed, and muttered, "I must have forgotten again. Sorry." Her smile stretched so slowly it made my skin crawl. "Well," she said sweetly, "when it happens for real, we'll make sure the paperwork's nice and tidy." And then she whispered, to herself but not really, "One day, all this will finally be mine." She thought I didn't hear, but I did, and I remembered. Because my mind is still a steel vault. I've always believed intelligence is best used quietly. The world expects noise from men, but underestimates the power of silence in a woman. So I made a plan, one careful step at a time. First, I found a doctor, Dr. Nia Green, young, cautious, brilliant, the kind of woman who respects the difference between old and incompetent. I visited her under the pretense of routine checkups, small slips, memory tests, gait assessments. We did full neurological scans. All clear. She handed me the results. "Mr. Harrington, your cognitive health is excellent, sharp as ever." I nodded, smiled. "Thank you, doctor. Now, would you mind putting that in writing?" Second, I reached out to Tobias Mendez, an attorney who used to be a boy with holes in his shoes and bruises on his confidence. I remembered his trembling hands when he first presented a paper in my class. He'd been raised by a single mother and nearly dropped out junior year. I gave him a scholarship, not from any foundation, from my own checking account. He graduated summa cum laude. Now he runs a boutique firm specializing in asset protection and property law. When I called, he answered with a tremor in his voice. "Professor Harrington?" I told him what I needed. He didn't hesitate. "I owe you my entire life. Just say where to start." Over the course of 4 months, we reclaimed every asset. The house? I had originally transferred the deed into Lucas's name, temporarily, to help him qualify for better business financing. It was based on a trust document that I never notarized. That trust was now nullified. Tobias helped me re-register the house in my name, and then we did something Erica never expected. We applied to designate the house as a state-recognized academic heritage site. Because in that basement, the very one they shoved me into, I wrote the majority of my published theses on intergenerational social power structures. That research had been cited in state-level reform legislation and was on record with the Washington State Historical Commission. Tobias submitted a detailed petition with articles, citations, and scanned manuscripts bearing the house address on every page. 3 months later, the designation was approved. This was no ordinary label. It came with legal protections, a preservation clause that forbade non-academic commercial activity, required ethical use of property, and most importantly, no beneficiary with a history of elderly abuse or documented misconduct toward the original scholar may reside, co-own, or operate commercial interest in the designated property. I just needed proof of misconduct. Which brings us to step 3, evidence. You remember the cameras Erica installed to watch me in the kitchen? I added my own, a hidden setup in the basement vent, one behind the pantry door, another under the hallway shelf. I recorded everything, every insult, every command to stay out of sight, every dinner where I was told to eat standing up in the laundry room. I had 6 months of footage, each clip sealed with a date, each insult archived like a legal record. Tobias watched every minute. He didn't speak for a long time after the last clip, the one from Christmas Eve, with Erica's voice shrill and clear. You're not just old, you're useless. If the law allowed it, I'd have sent you to a facility months ago. When he did speak, he said only this: they're going to lose everything. I nodded. Because I didn't want revenge out of cruelty. I wanted justice. The kind that comes without shouting, the kind that arrives with paperwork and government stamps, the kind you can't undo with apologies. Because if there's one thing my years of teaching taught me, it's this: people who casually diminish others never imagine the quiet ones are archiving everything. People underestimate the value of silence. They think when you don't react, you're weak. When you don't speak, you don't understand. But silence, used properly, is a net, catching every word, every plan, every secret. And I had caught them all. The final piece came on a night they were too drunk on champagne and arrogance to whisper. It was 2 weeks before Christmas. The house was decked in gold and pine. Lucas had hired a decorator, someone to hang wreaths professionally, because apparently garlands made by a mother's hands didn't photograph well. I wasn't invited to decorate, but I made sure one ornament, one small detail, came from me. A ceramic angel statue sat at the center of the hallway table, white and gold, subtle, elegant, and inside it, a voice recorder. Small, voice activated, battery lasting weeks. That angel listened better than my own son. That night, Erica stood in front of it with her mother, sipping wine, both of them laughing like queens on a balcony. She's slipping, Erica said. Yesterday she called me by the dog's name. They laughed. I give it 2 more months before we can get her declared unfit. That long? Not if we get her to sign the deed while she's confused. She's been mumbling about recipes and dead poets. It won't be hard. Her mother chimed in, casual as murder. Just give her a form with soft edges and a gentle tone. Old people love paperwork that feels like an apology. They laughed again. I played the recording for Tobias the next morning. He didn't laugh. He leaned back in his chair and said, "We don't need a court battle, this is enough. We'll trigger the protection clause immediately." But I wasn't done, not yet, because they needed to feel what they had made me feel, not just loss, but the sudden horror of underestimating someone they thought had nothing left. So I called Lucas, invited him downstairs. He came reluctantly, holding a mug of herbal tea like a peace offering. His tie was loose, his posture defensive. "Mom, I've been meaning to talk to you. Erica says you've been confused lately. You know we just want what's best." I cut him off. "Do you remember Mrs. Benton from 3rd grade? He blinked. "What?" "She's the teacher who let you redo your spelling test when you got sick. You cried when she passed away." He nodded, hesitant. "She's buried 2 plots over from your father. Did you know that?" "No." I stood, walked to the bookshelf, took out a folder. Inside, a copy of the deed in my name, the state designation as a protected academic site, and a copy of the recording, labeled, time-stamped, transcribed. I handed him all of it. His face drained like water from a cracked vase. You heard that?" "No, Lucas, I recorded it." He opened the file, read it. His lips trembled, but not from sadness, from fear. "You can't do this. This is our life. You built your life on my grave, son. And I'm not buried yet." He tried to speak, tried to rage, plead, explain. But I had nothing left to lend him. Not trust, not time, not understanding. Only facts. Tobias sent the cease and desist letters that night. The restraining clauses. The asset locks. The formal notice of property and company reclamation, backed by state law and recorded evidence. I watched from the top of the stairs as Erica opened the envelope. Glossy nails ripping into her own downfall. She paled, she screamed, she accused me of manipulation, forgery, and revenge. I said nothing. Because I had everything. Not just the house, not just the company. I had the truth. And I had it backed by their own words. They tried to humiliate me in front of 30 guests. Now they would watch their names scrubbed from every document they once used to define their success. And the angel statue? Still sits on my desk, because sometimes even angels get tired of being silent. It was snowing, soft, slow flakes drifting down like a hush from heaven. Inside the house, the warmth of cinnamon and pine still clung to the walls, the remnants of last night's performance. Upstairs, laughter stirred as Erica's mother unwrapped a gold-ribboned gift. Lucas poured champagne. The table was set for brunch. A photographer was scheduled to arrive by noon. And then, a knock. 3 firm raps on the oak door. Not rushed, not angry, official. Erica opened it, still in silk. Her smile cracked when she saw the man on the porch. Gray suit, leather case, clipboard in hand. "Good morning. I'm here on behalf of Mrs. Lois Harrington, the sole legal owner and named preserver of this state-registered academic heritage site." Erica blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" The man continued, voice clear, unemotional. "Per legal documentation and protection statutes, your residency here is in violation of preservation law due to documented abuse and exploitation of the scholarly beneficiary." He handed her an envelope. "You have 5 days to vacate the premises. Any refusal to comply will result in immediate legal action, including trespassing charges and academic interference penalties." Inside, forks clinked to a halt. Someone gasped. Lucas appeared behind her, face pale, lips parted. "Wait, what is this? You can't do that. My name's on the—" The man didn't flinch. "Your previous title was revoked per trust reversion. All assets have been legally reassigned. Your business license has been flagged pending investigation." Erica clutched the envelope like it was hot to the touch. "This is insane. Where's Lois? She doesn't even come upstairs anymore." That's when I emerged, from the grave they thought they'd dug for me in the basement, from the place they buried me while I was still alive. I didn't wear revenge on my face, just a quiet cardigan, warm shoes, and the stillness of someone who had nothing left to lose. "You're wrong," I said. They all turned. "My name," I said, "is in every brick of this house, every nail, every lecture written on the porch, every scholarship funded by these walls." Lucas stepped forward. "Mom, you can't just— This is our home." I met his eyes, calm. "You made it a stage for your ambition. She made it a cage for my silence. I gave you my life, Lucas. You gave me a basement." Erica's voice cracked. "You were losing your mind. We were trying to help." I held up a folder, the doctor's letter, the notarized results, the timestamps. "This is my mind, intact, unbroken, and very well recorded." Lucas's voice broke. "Why? Why would you do this to us?" "Because you did it first," I whispered, "but louder, crueler, and for longer than you remember." The man in the suit gently stepped aside, giving them space to leave. No one moved. Erica's mother stood behind the table, face stiff with disbelief. "You're nothing without our son. No one even remembers your name." I smiled gently. "Funny? Because the state of Washington just named me Preserver of Legacy and Scholar Emeritus in their holiday bulletin." I placed a copy on the table. Front page. My name, my face. Not old, not lost, not forgotten. Recognized. Erica collapsed into a chair. Lucas looked like a man watching a building fall in slow motion, a building he once thought couldn't be touched. "We'll fight this." "You already lost. You betrayed us." "No," I said. "I remembered everything. That's not betrayal. That's history." Erica's fall didn't come with a bang. It came in headlines, small at first. Then, louder, a local business blog published the first story. "Exclusive interior power couple accused of elder abuse in historic Seattle estate." Then came the leaked footage. Erica's voice, clear as glass. "She's old and in the way. One slip and I'll have the deed in my hands." Clips of her mocking my memory, telling guests to ignore me, telling me to eat in the laundry room. By the end of the week, she had lost her job at the investment firm. By the end of the month, she was removed from 3 boards, her face quietly erased from brochures, websites, business panels. Every time she applied for something new, search results followed her like a shadow. She who once said government aid was for the unambitious now stood in line for assistance at a state office, trying to explain that she used to live in a house with a piano room and imported stone countertops. She had a breakdown on the courthouse steps when a reporter asked, "Do you regret treating your mother-in-law that way?" She screamed, "She set me up." No one felt sorry for her, because the public doesn't pity abusers caught on tape. They pity the grandmothers locked in basements. As for Lucas, the company he built with my seed money, Harrington & Co., crumbled within weeks. When I reclaimed my share, the banks reevaluated his assets, his lines of credit vanished, his silent partners pulled out. And then came the lawsuit, filed by Tobias, my lawyer, the boy with the old shoes and new power. Charges: intent to exploit an elderly individual, unlawful occupation of protected property, financial misrepresentation in securing business loans. Lucas had built a life on borrowed respect he never earned, just inherited from my reputation. Now, stripped of it, he stood as he really was, a man who watched his mother wash dishes in silence while he toasted champagne to his vision. He couldn't get a business license, couldn't lease an office space, even tried applying under a new name, but the internet is forever, and Tobias is thorough. The boy I once helped with his grammar homework had now helped me dismantle the empire built on my back. Where did they go? A 2-bedroom apartment near the freeway, thin walls, flickering lights. The kind of place where ambition echoes like regret. They live on government aid now. The very system Erica once called a retirement plan for losers. Funny how fate works. And me? I didn't move back upstairs. I turned the whole house into something better. The Harrington Center for Intellectual Resilience, a nonprofit dedicated to educating, sheltering, and empowering women over 60 who had been discarded by their families. We offer workshops on legal literacy, self-defense, technology basics, and most importantly, how to recognize gaslighting before it becomes a prison. I will share my story, not to shame them, but to remind these women and myself that dignity doesn't die quietly. It waits. Sometimes in the basement, sometimes in a box of old documents, sometimes in the mind of a woman who once taught generations to think critically and finally turned that gaze on her own family. I could have sold the house. I could have torn it down and built something new, a boutique hotel, a bookstore, a cafe with overpriced scones. But I didn't, because the house wasn't just wood and wallpaper. It was a battlefield, and now it would become a haven. I renamed it the Harrington Center for Survival and Scholarship. Some call it a nonprofit, some call it a retreat. I call it a second wind for women who were told they were too old, too tired, too useless to matter. Here they learn. We teach women how to write their memoirs, not just for print, but for dignity. We teach them how to set up email, protect their assets, spot financial traps before their own sons or daughters try to spring them. We teach them to say no, not with anger, but with certainty. Some of them arrive here with walkers, some with bruises, some with nothing but a small purse and a quiet story. And we hand them a notebook, a laptop, a room with their name on the door. Every month I get letters, dozens, then hundreds from women in Kansas, Arizona, New York, Alabama. They write, "My daughter-in-law did the same to me. They said I was crazy too. Thank you. I thought I was the only one. They're not. I answer as many as I can. I print the rest and pin them on the wall outside my study. The wall is full now. We call it the Wall of Witnesses, because silence does not mean surrender. It means strategy. It means survival. It means waiting for the right moment to speak. And when we do, God help the ones who thought we wouldn't. They thought I would die in that basement, that I'd forget my own name, forget the papers I signed, forget the house I built and the son I raised. They thought they'd wear me down with cold dinners and quiet insults. They thought my back would break before my voice rose, but they forgot something. They forgot what a mother does. A mother gives up meals, give up on sleep, give up dreams so her child can have one. But a mother can also wait. She can sit through humiliation, through silence, through the ache of being called useless in her own kitchen, just long enough to gather every detail, every voice, every betrayal, long enough to let them laugh, to let them believe they've won. Then, when the time is right, she moves. Not with rage, not with noise, with receipts, with resolve, and with every ounce of the dignity they tried to take from her. If this story moved you, remember, silence doesn't mean surrender. It means strength. Somewhere out there, another woman is sitting quietly in a basement, waiting for the moment to rise. Maybe it's your mother, your grandmother, or maybe it's you. And when she does rise, may the world be watching. For more powerful true stories of resilience, betrayal, and justice reclaimed, subscribe to Grandma True Stories. Because every grandmother has a past, and some of them are not done writing it. Don't forget to like, comment, and hit that bell so you never miss a story that matters.